All right, we are all here, and the timestamp is 6:01 p.m. And today is Tuesday, May the 19th, 2020, and we are bringing to order the Duncanville City Council meeting by video conferencing. And I will just go ahead and read the supplemental notice of meeting by video conference in accordance with an order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16th, 2020. City Council for the City of Duncanville, Texas will conduct City Council regular meetings by video conference at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th in order to advance public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also called social distancing, in an effort to slow the spread of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. This is an open meeting conducted by video conference. There is no public access to the physical location. All public comments submitted by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th would be provided to City Council, and I received an email from City Secretary that we have no public comments received. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay, so we will be dispensing with that portion of our meeting. A recording of the video meeting will be made available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act upon written request. And I've been advised by our IT Director, Tracy Beekman, that we are on Facebook Live tonight. This is open and live. So audience is in listen-only mode. However, the public comments, well, we don't have any public comments to be read into the record. However, we are going to have a public hearing. So when the public hearing on agenda item 5A is open for comments, and any citizen that wishes to speak, please use the options provided by Zoom to raise your hand. If you're calling in and would like to speak, press 9 on your phone's dial to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, the city secretary will turn on your mic and call on you to speak. You may also submit your comments in advance in accordance with guidelines, but there we have nothing in advance. So each council member must use the raise your hand option in Zoom or physically raise your hand. So we've been practicing with raise your hand. It's part of you, when you have your participants list up, you can raise your hand from the bottom right-hand corner or wave in the screen so that either Kristen or myself can see very readily that one of you wishes to speak. We do have two city attorneys with us tonight, City Attorney Percy and City Attorney Hager. The reason for that is Mr. Hager will be discussing one of our executive items early on because he has another appointment that he needs to get to. So once Mr. Hager departs, City Attorney Percy will take over in his stead. So the work session, I'll go into our briefing. Mr. Hugman, if you would please discuss the consent items.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the only item on the consent agenda is item 4A, which are to consider the minutes for the April 27th and 28th, 2020 City Council special meeting and the May 5th, 2020 City Council regular meeting. Okay.
All right, with that, once that is dispensed with, we can go into, make sure I've got this right. From now we can go into executive session. Do I have that correct?
Mayor Gordon, Councilmember Anderson would like to say something.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
I think I filled out the paperwork right and I'm doing this right, but I am to notify you that I have a conflict of interest on item number 5A. And I'm stating that now, and I will be leaving the meeting when that's discussed per the city secretary, her instructions.
Thank you. And when we get to that item on the agenda, I will also mention it just in case somebody comes in at a later date and hasn't heard what you just said, Monty. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Yes, Mr. Hugman.
Mayor, we did have one other briefing session. If you want to go into executive session, we will just need to recess the briefing or come back to it, or we could do that one now.
Oh, the fireworks show. I'm sorry. I just saw it. Okay. Bart, why don't we go ahead and take that? I don't know how much time do you think it'll take? We'll be able to get through our executive session before 7. Okay. Bart Stevenson, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so let's go ahead with briefing's presentation. Discuss the Independence Day fireworks show, please.
Okay. As you're aware, that City Manager Hugman spoke with you a couple meetings ago about the 4th of July plans for this year. with COVID-19, we are not planning any activities that we typically have with our 4th of July. At this point in time, we're only considering doing the fireworks only, and that's consistent with most, if not all, of the other cities in the Dallas-Fort Worth and around Texas. At this time, we'd like to get council's feedback on the doing the fireworks only, whether that's something that we want to continue planning for with the continuing emergence of COVID-19 and the fact that the governor did not relax the quantity of people who can gather yesterday in his press conference is still at 10 or less. There's concerns that the crowds that will be congregating at Armstrong Park and around the Armstrong Park area will be taxing to our police department as well as our other city staffing responsibilities. So in addition, there's been a number of other cities who have canceled their fireworks. Most notably, I would make you aware that Lancaster has decided to cancel their joint fireworks show with the city of DeSoto. So essentially, we would be the only show in the best Southwest area should we proceed with the fireworks show, which will, I think, further bring more people to Duncanville into the area this July 4th. So with that, I'll allow City Manager Hugman to make any comments he'd like to make.
So basically you're saying Cedar Hill canceled also?
Cedar Hill does not have a show.
Oh, they don't, okay.
Show, so yeah, they do not have one. So we really have three options. One is to continue with what we are planning, and that's doing a fireworks only show. The cost of that show is about $27,000. The police have estimated that they will spend about $11,000 in personnel, plus the personnel costs from the other departments is another $4,000 or so. The other option is to cancel altogether, which obviously would be zero cost to the city. We have paid a deposit to our band, which isn't part of the event I know now, but the band has agreed to forward that deposit for a future event. So we've not lost any money there. So there's our option.
We had some discussion about the possibility of doing fireworks during Christmas. Did you want to address that, Mr. Hugman?
Yes, Mayor. So we do have, as Bart said, we have not entered into the contract yet with the fireworks company. Had we entered into the contract, then we would have had the ability to postpone the fireworks until later this year, this calendar year. And that is still an option too. If the council wishes to do that, we can enter into the contract with the intent of doing a fireworks show later in the year. But since we have not entered into the contract yet, at this point, you also have the option of not doing it at all and then just waiting until 2021.
Do our fire and police chiefs have any thoughts about doing it in conjunction with the parade in terms of the stress on the city and staff if we were to do it in conjunction with the parade during Christmas?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
We have you, Chief Brown. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I don't have any concerns with it being done in conjunction with the Christmas parade. No, sir. I do have some concerns with having the fireworks show this July 4th. As Bart indicated, a number of cities throughout the Metroplex have decided to cancel their fireworks display, which means we're going to have a large gathering. If you recall, in 2015, we began implementing or erecting fencing around Armstrong Park. And the reason for that was to control the number of people inside our parks as well as who enters the park. Without that fencing, it's going to be very difficult to control the number of people that enter the park as well as who's going to enter it. In addition to that, in the past years, we've also hired outside law enforcement officers to assist with our July 4th fireworks display. This year, we will not be doing that. That's 46 additional officers that we will not have available to assist us in controlling any incidents that may occur. We will still have traffic congestion. We'll still have parking issues that need to be addressed. So I just wanted the council to be aware of those issues as you make your decision. But just know whatever decision you make, we will do our very best to provide a safe event.
Thanks, Chief. Just the thought that what we're looking at in terms of budget constraints because of the effect of COVID-19 on our business and budget and sales tax income and so forth. If we were to total everything up, it comes to well over $40,000, if I've got that right. Is that somewhere in the ballpark, Mr. Hugman? So if we were to totally cancel and not even consider fireworks this year in 2020 at all, we could take some stress off of the budget in tunes of about $40,000, regardless of any stresses on our forces or anything like that. Mr. Cooks, I saw that you raised your hand.
Yeah, I did. Good evening. Hey, Chief, I have a question for the chief.
Yes, sir. I'm
I
here.
know, as you mentioned, I know 2015 was a very peculiar year. We did not have the fireworks because of different circumstances. However, on this particular one, let me ask again, could the streets around the surrounding areas of the park, the complete street, not be blocked off where cars could not even just drive down those streets? Which it would still take less manpower, and this is me, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Perhaps to give an example would be we block off Wheatland, we block off Maine. There's no way they can get close to that park. We're only talking about an hour. We're only talking about an hour, 2 hours, how long the fireworks show is holding. And I just think it's so important, really just think it's so important because we have everything that's happened with this COVID-19 and to take this away, I do want to be very conscious of the gathering, and I'm hoping this will help with the gathering, but I just want to be, but to take this away right now will be very kind of drastic. I would hope that we could say that we would encourage everyone to stay at their homes and you could see it from home versus anything else and blocking off those streets around it. So my question goes back to you, Chief, is would that not sacrifice as well with citizens on patrol if they're assisting, your regular cars if they're assisting, blocking up the streets, they get nowhere close to that park?
Well, Councilmember Cook, I absolutely agree with you that it's an important event. It's an event that we've held throughout my tenure, and it's an event that our citizens really enjoy. But as a police chief, I have to think about the safety of the attendees. And when you talk about not having any fencing, and you talk about the number of individuals that will gather in our park, I'm just very concerned, quite frankly.
No, I think you may have missed what I said there. I'm saying no gathering in the park. I'm saying if you still need fencing around, maybe perhaps still fencing around for second security, but the other security would be cars are not even allowed to drive down the streets close to the park. So therefore, there's no gathering to get to the park.
Councilmember Cooks, I don't think that we can realistically even do that. People are going to walk to the park. They're still going to gather in the park, even if they're not driving up there. And without access, without secure access points, I don't know how we don't have enough personnel to keep gathering like that. And even if you do block the street. So I think it's still going to, you're going to have to assume that people are going to gather and there's going to be people.
So you're saying the fence, because you have to get inside the fence to get into the park, right?
There is no fence in the park.
If we do the fence,
That's an additional cost that we did not calculate into this, and fencing is very expensive. I don't remember the cost on that. Barton has that number probably, but that is the cost that was not included in what we just gave you.
Let me ask it another way. The other way would be to tell me how we could do it, Chief and City Manager. Tell me how we could do it. Tell me what you would recommend that'll keep citizens safe. Budget-wise, already paying for the fence regardless. If we were gonna have it pre this, we were gonna pay for the fence anyway. So tell me how we could do it versus telling me what we can't. So maybe I'll approach it that way. Perhaps at least time to tell me how we could do it.
Originally, when we discussed this, recall that the cost of this event is much more than the $40,000. It's well over $100,000 when you have the full event with vendors, music, entertainment, fencing, and so forth. So the price that we put in the memo today was just the fireworks and just personnel. That's all police personnel and then additional park personnel. So to do it, if we were going to do it, it would just essentially be open. And we would encourage people to view it from elsewhere where they can. But you know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to come to the park anyway to watch the fireworks. And so that's how we would do it. And at that point, it's just, you're just accepting that there's going to be groups of people gathering, and there's probably going to be people parked in their cars on the parking lots of the businesses on Main Street and so forth. We will watch from there. But there will probably be people coming into the parks as well to sit and watch it. So that's how it would be done. If we have to put fencing up, then we're talking more costs to do that.
Yeah, I think the cost is a different way. I think we're using the cost as an out, honestly. So if it's anything, I can take on the safety of our citizens not gathering, but the cost of this, we're going to do the cost regardless. I still say
Mark, I think we have to take cost into account this year as something different.
Let me finish. It was already budgeted. It was already budgeted for this already. This is not like this is a new expense. But I'm just sharing, and I'll leave this alone. Well, I'm still passionate about it, but I'll let it go to move on from it. But I will tell you that the cost on the budget of this was already in the budget. It's not something that's sneaking up on us. What snuck up on us is COVID-19. What did not is the cost of the event. We're still coming in less. By not having entertainment, not having all the other things that we would. I'm just telling you, our citizens need really. And the last time we did 2015, we came back tucking our tail. The next council did, because our citizens really didn't like it. And we understand this is a whole different situation. I agree with that and understand. However, what I'm hearing the same thing. The first time we counseled this in 2015, we came up with reason why we had to counsel and should counsel versus how we could make it work. So that's all I was challenging the chief as well as the city manager to tell us. But the budget piece, please don't share the budget piece with me, because it's already has been budgeted. We will save money, that's great. But the event itself is still happening.
Okay, well, the fact that it's been budgeted, now we have an inaccurate budget because our budget is not going to be anywhere close to what we budgeted for. As a result of that, our budget is going to be in a huge shortfall. So we can't say don't discount the budget issue, because it's a real issue. We're going to be 25 to 30% below what we've ever budgeted for. That means this city has to compensate in some respect. Now, I agree that the fireworks is a wonderful thing for our community. But you can't say that the budget is because it's budgeted we can do it. No, we can't, because that budget is inaccurate as it stands today. And there's going to be a hit to our budget as we go through. And what has to come first is being able to provide services to our community. And I believe our citizens will understand. Now, there's another aspect of what you're proposing, Mark, is that even if we close off the street and we ask people to stay home, people are going to take the path of least resistance. They're going to want to get close to that park, which means that they're going to flood the residences around the park, and we're going to have more and more complaints about trying to control traffic in the residential areas. There's more contingency issues to this that I think we can even plan for because of human behavior as a result of what's happened and what we're going through right now. It's a difficult thing for us. Another thing that from the mechanical aspect of what you're suggesting, we would have to find out if it's possible for a fireworks vendor to program those fireworks to go an extra 600, 700, 800, maybe 1,000 feet higher in order for people to view them from their homes around the city. That's going to cost more. You can't make a fireworks going up 1,000 feet high, just be able to view from other parts of the city without paying for that extra propellant. That's just a factor we can't even account for today. We have no idea what that's going to cost.
I think we're adding something. You're adding that to it, Mayor. But I'll leave that alone.
Well, I'm going off of your suggestion to be able to view it from your home. You got to get it. It's got to be a higher altitude.
That was my suggestion as a council person. I was really putting it back on the city manager chief to tell me what we could do versus what I could. I'm just giving a suggestion from a civilian who don't know what security should be. I was asking the chief and the city manager to tell us what could happen. So I was just getting throwing some thoughts, but the really comes from the two people that I was asking. But that's my thought. So if
Well,
my would be to still have it and still have the city manager and chief to come back up with something, and if their recommendation at the end of the day says that didn't work, then at least we tried. At least we would able to told us this in another form, other than it just not working.
all right, Chief. It's the end of the day. Give us your flat out recommendation.
Sir, my flat out recommendation is that we not have the fireworks display for this year. I just think that there are too many logistical situations that will cause a burden on the personnel. Without the fencing, without the additional security personnel, it's going to make it very difficult for us.
Mayor Gordon, Councilmember Vera Cruz has his hand up.
Okay, Joe.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to agree with Chief Brown. Without the additional officers and us being the only game in town, if you will, we're going to draw folks from all around, which are going to overwhelm all our services and not only put the civilians in jeopardy or danger, but our own public servants. So we've definitely got to look out for them because we need them. That's my only comment. Thank you, sir.
I will interject that the last Metroplex Mayors Association call that we had a week and a half ago, and this involves about 35, 37 mayors from around the entire Metroplex. The subject of the fireworks display came up, and virtually everybody is having to have, unfortunately, they're saying it's just not going to happen this year. There's too many things going on. Number one, it is budget. Number two, how do we handle it? Number three, what do we do with the crowds? And what do we do with the best things for the safety of our citizens? So it was a consensus of the Metroplex Mayors Association. And this is throughout the entire, well, it's more than just even Dallas County, really. That there would not, it's in the best interest of the Metroplex not to have fireworks displays. Not to say that somebody's going to change their mind between now and July, but that's what the consensus was among the mayors just about a week and a half ago. So, Mark, I hope you understand. Unless if there is,
I understand. I understand. I just don't agree. I understand that.
Understand. And we appreciate that opportunity to hear what you have to say. Is there any other council member that has any opinion? If not, we'll take it that we will accept Chief Brown's recommendation from a safety standpoint that we will not have fireworks this year. Are there any comments from City Council? Okay, seeing none, we will, for the record, regrettably, and as we put it, Mr. Hugman, as it's announced to the public, that it was a painful decision for us as a council. We understand how enjoyable this community event is. It's a hallmark event for our city, but regrettably, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and we regret we can't have fireworks this year. We'll do something bigger and better next year, hopefully. Okay. So with that, we can move on to executive session. And so at this point, I would ask that everybody who is not a member of City Council and is not a participant in the executive session, please log off. The timestamp for reconvening, let me get my notes here. Calling our city council session for May the 19th, 2020, calling this to order. Timestamp is 7:14. Okay. Mr. Cooks, would you like to give us an invocation, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, Lord our God, how lovely is your name in all the earth. We thank you, Father, for this day. We thank you, Father, for this to call you our Lord and our Savior. Now, Father, we pray that you will guide us in the direction for our city, for our country, and for each one of us as council members, Lord. We thank you, Father, for your direction. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Please join me in pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one
and indivisible.
Okay, moving on to item number 1 on the agenda is the mayor's report. A couple of quick items to go over, and don't know if we have any citizens on board with us. Dallas County Judge Jenkins, with the advice and counsel of an entire medical staff, published a document last week, which it's color coded in terms of red, orange, yellow, green, in terms of what we citizens can and should do during this time of COVID. And each public press release that he puts out, he gives guidance, or he gives the recommendation of that medical consortium that he has. And right now we're still under the red. We have posted that document to our website, and our citizens are strongly encouraged to abide by those recommendations. And we have to understand the way the governor has worded things, that recommendations shall not be made requirements at local level. His recommendations supersede anything done at local level. So we as citizens are strongly urged to do the very best we can in all aspects of keeping ourselves safe. The second thing is that May 15th was Police Memorial Day. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but I did make a video memorializing our 2 officers that were killed in the line of duty. And that video is available. It is pretty special to continue to recognize them, and their families are still around in the area. So if you have a chance to see that, it would be good. The video, I also made a video for the Economic Development Small Business Recovery Assistance Program. That's available on the website as well now. And the last thing I'd want to cover pretty quick is that as of today, we now have 114 positive cases in the city of Duncanville. 1 additional death was reported in the city of Duncanville for today. An individual in the age of that individual in their 80s. 14 deaths, and the county now has today 225 new cases. And to use a phrase that Judge Jenkins used in one of his calls to mayors, was that we have plateaued at peak. So if you can imagine the trend line of new cases, we have at a new level, upwards of in between 230 and 250. But interestingly, that peak is also plateaued. So what they're hoping for is that the statistical model that goes along with this thing is going to say that now we have peaked up here in the 240, 250 range, and it's plateaued, and now we can begin to see a slight decline. Whether that's going to happen, nobody knows. The only thing I would add is that if you take the number of cases, we now have 114. We still have community spread in the city of Duncanville. And it behooves all of our citizens to continue to take all necessary precautions to protect themselves and keep themselves safe. That concludes my mayor's report. Any council members' reports? Mr. Cooks.
Yes, Mayor and Council, and to our audience. First of all, I want to just remind our citizens that as we talk about our small business, to really still shop locally, shop Duncanville. I know some of our restaurants are open 25% and now open 50%, but we still encourage you to shop locally as much as possible, but also then stay safe and stay covered as well all the time. But I do want to announce that with everything going on, I had the lunch and learn before all of this happened. And so I had to get creative, but not creative, more so follow the trends that has happened throughout the country. And so the new lunch and learn is now called Meet, Connect, and Learn. It's called Meet, Connect, and Learn. And so I'll be doing that once a month by Zoom. And so I've sent that out to hopefully citizens that's listening in, all social media sites as well. So we'll have a Zoom Meet, Connect, and Learn. And our first guest is going to be our city manager, Kevin, who's going to talk to District 4 residents about any updates that's going on in our city as well. I'll encourage anyone that's open, please feel free to join. But again, that link is on the city website. It's also on social media. And on already in advance, thank Kevin for agreeing to be our first speaker as we return back to Meet, Connect, and Learn, AKA lunch and learn. So thank you very much.
It looks like Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett has something to say.
One thing I'd like to remind everybody again, and Mark, I appreciate your comments about Duncanville, but one thing too is also want to remind you along that same line is about the census, and to please continue to fill out census information. Thank you.
Okay, did I miss any other council members for reports? No, okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I will just mention that we did reopen City Hall facilities yesterday. The City Hall lobby is open. We do have stanchions up and we have markers on the floor for appropriate distancing. We have plexiglass shields up on our counters, but we are seeing some traffic. It is not as what we had previous to the pandemic, but we are having some walk-in traffic again in City Hall. Our library has been reopened at limited hours. We are working on plans to reopen the fitness center and the recreation center, given the new guidelines now. And also, I should mention that the police lobby is open as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Concluding all the reports, item number 2 on the agenda, proclamations and presentations, we have none. Moving item to number 3, citizens input. We have not received any citizens input prior to the 4 o'clock deadline of today, so we'll move on from item number 3. Moving on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. And the city secretary, please read the consent items.
Consider the minutes for the April 27th and 28th City Council special meetings and the May 5th, 2020 City Council regular meeting.
Thank you very much. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Cooks approves. Second.
Second.
Mr. McBurnett. Be a roll call vote. City secretary.
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against. I read her lips, she said 4. At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against. Did you say 4? Okay. Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you. The motion for consent items is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 5, items for individual consideration.
Mayor, or Kristen, do I just log out now and Kristen, you'll call me on my cell phone to come back? Can't hear you.
Sorry. Turn off your camera and your microphone and that'll be it.
Okay. Don't log out. I can still hear.
It's okay if you hear. You just can't speak on it or we can't see your face.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to read that Councilmember Anderson has a conflict of interest on item number 5A, and he has filed the required statutory form in terms of that conflict of interest. He will now go silent and will not be participating in any discussions or decisions regarding item 5A on the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, and I'll go ahead and read the opening for it. Items 5A, conduct a public hearing, 2020-04, and consider an ordinance to amend existing downtown Duncanville DD district zoning to include a specific use permit to allow a tattoo and body piercing establishment on a portion of Main Station Block A, Lot 1, approximately 1.3091 acres, more commonly known as 100 South Main Street, Duncanville. Now, what we'll go ahead and do is we will have the briefing by I believe it's going to be Mr. Hueg, our interim planner, and then we will open it up to a public hearing. And at that particular point in time, I will give instructions to any citizens that may be available who wish to speak for the public hearing. So I said Hueg. I'm very sorry, Andrew. It's Rueg. This is Mr. Andrew Rueg, our interim city planner. So go ahead, please.
Good evening, council members, and thank you for having me here. I am Andrew Rueg, the interim city planner, and I'll be presenting 2020-04, the SUP for the tattoo and body piercing establishment use to you all tonight. I believe Tracy with IT, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So this is a zoning case to amend the existing downtown Duncanville district to include a specific use permit to allow a tattoo and body piercing establishment in the area known as 100 South Main Street. And this is a part of Main Station there on Main Street. The applicant is Francisco Rosales. Next slide, please. What we did when we look at these SUPs is we check the comprehensive land use plan. I did want to make a few notes on as far as this case goes related to the comprehensive plan. This is located in an opportunity area that's indicated on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. So this is in the downtown district, which is envisioned as a regional destination and hub of activity in the city. This district is envisioned to have a vertical mix of uses, including boutique retail development, restaurant, office, etc. And this area is envisioned as being pedestrian oriented. So the goals for this downtown district include pedestrian activity, so people can walk comfortably from one location to another throughout the district, encourage strolling, window shopping, other pedestrian type of activities, and provide a mix of uses. And that mix of uses includes retail and personal service type uses. So when evaluating this proposed SUP with the downtown district of the comprehensive plan, we found that the proposed use does comply with the vision of the downtown district within the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. Here's the area of request located on the southeast corner of South Main Street and East Center Street. And as mentioned before, this is a part of Main Station Duncanville. It's an existing structure that has various uses in the building right now. Next slide, please. And the scope of this request is to seek the SUP for a tattoo and body piercing establishment to occupy a tenant space in the approximately 11,948 square foot building. This tenant space would occupy approximately 927 square feet of the existing building. And we'll have some visuals here in a second. The proposed hours of operation from the applicant were from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Next slide, please. Again, here's the area of request, kind of a more zoomed out view. This is on Main Street, so just a little bit to the north of the library, community center, and city hall. And this is kind of in the heart of downtown Duncanville. Next slide, please. Here's the current zoning. So as you can see, it is in the downtown Duncanville zoning district, primarily surrounded by downtown Duncanville district zoning. There are a few SUPs that exist surrounding the site, which are primarily for an event center and a party facility rental establishment. Also to the northeast of the site, there's a PD that is for residential development for condominium type uses. This hasn't been developed yet, but the zoning is in place to add more of a residential component in the future. Next slide, please. Also, when evaluating the SUP, we look at the parking and its requirements and regulations depending on what zoning district it is. So in the downtown Duncanville district, there is no parking requirement. And the intent of that is to encourage pedestrian activity by allowing patrons to walk from one location to another. Public parking is available in the downtown district, and this use or this tenant space has an existing parking lot directly behind the existing structure right now. So this would, potential customers would be able to park on the street parking, which is available to all downtown patrons, or they could utilize the parking lot directly behind the building, which has, I think, 90 spaces available to it that are for those patrons of the main station Duncanville structure. So we've evaluated this use and believe that the proposed use will not adversely impact parking and traffic in the area. Next slide, please. Signage, this is another thing that we evaluate when looking at this particular SUP. The signage, which we'll have an example of here shortly, they simply must comply with Article 12L of the Duncanville District Development Standards and Chapter 16A of the Sign Guidelines in the Code of Ordinances. So I'll talk more about that when we get to our visual for the signage. Next slide, please. For the land use section, every specific use permit shall be considered an amendment to the zoning district applicable in such property and shall authorize the specific use in addition to the uses permitted by right in the district. So this use for a tattoo and body piercing establishment requires an SUP in all non-residential zoning districts. So it's permitted in, or it has the potential to be permitted in non-residential zoning, which is the case for the downtown district. And the SUP is an additional control that is on the tattoo and body piercing establishment use. City Council, you all may impose conditions which shall be complied with the grantee before a certificate of occupancy may be issued by the building official. So there are some proposed conditions listed with this SUP, which I'll get to here shortly. Next slide, please. As far as surrounding land uses to this proposed SUP, the subject property is immediately surrounded by office, residential, restaurant, and retail uses as part of the existing building. So this is currently a vacant tenant space, but there are other restaurant, retail, office tenants in that structure currently, with residential on the second floor. And the subject property is also adjacent to the Performing Arts Theater just to the south of the site. Next slide. Here's a site plan to give you an idea of the existing non-residential tenants that are there today. So Suite 104, which you can see highlighted on the site plan, is the tenant site for the proposed tattoo and body piercing establishment. There's restaurant, office, personal service uses in this shopping or this existing structure today. If you'll go to the next slide, please. This is the floor plan for Suite 104. So this is what we would be, in addition to the site plan, we'd be tying the SUP, should you choose to approve it, to the floor plan and site plan, meaning that the SUP could only be used at this location specified on these plans. Next slide. And then as far as the SUP, it is, and I think I talked to this a little bit earlier, it is being requested to comply with Article 13 of the zoning ordinance, which would allow the tattoo and body piercing establishment in the downtown district by SUP only. And the appropriateness of this use, as far as staff's research on it goes, was being evaluated with the other requirements in the zoning district. So for an SUP, this can be issued for an unlimited or a limited amount of time. Other SUP requests have had a time limit from anywhere from 1 to 5 years, and some SUP requests also are approved with additional year automatic renewals. So that's something that can be added or modified in the conditions. Next slide. Here's some of those examples of the signage I was talking to. So if you've been over by the site, main station, Duncanville, you'll see other blade signs. So this is an example of what the blade signs would look like if this SUP were to be approved. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The applicant has also provided staff artwork samples, which are provided here. Next slide. The applicant has also provided a letter, signatures of support of their SUP request, and a flyer sort of outlining the artwork that the applicant has done in the past. I'd also like to note, additionally, in your case report packet, there was a petition with change.org that was included in your packet that listed 126 electronic signatures from Duncanville residents out of the 581 total signatures from other locations in the US. So that was included in your packet that the applicant has provided to us. Next slide. Notification was sent out, so there were 17 notices sent out to surrounding property owners, and as of today, one response in support has been received. Next slide. And this is the recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission. So on April 27th, 2020, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended by a vote of 6-1 approval of an ordinance to amend the existing zoning district to include a SUP for a tattoo and body piercing establishment with the following conditions. Property shall be developed in accordance with the floor plan, which is attached hereto as Exhibit B and is incorporated herein as special conditions. So this is essentially tying the SUP to the tenant space that it is proposed to be located at. Property shall meet all city, state, and federal regulations for building and fire codes and accessibility. This is a standard notation that we put in our SUPs to ensure that the SUP applicant is meeting all city, state, and federal regulations as it relates to building, fire codes, and accessibility. I do want to point out a question that we had in the P&Z meeting, which did not make its way to the final recommendations, but the P&Z, some commissioners wanted to ask a question about requiring compliance with state regulations. So a tattoo and body piercing establishment has state regulations they must comply with. So that is an option to add in as an additional line item in the conditions to meet those required regulations for the state as far as health and safety requirements go. So I did want to bring that up, That way we checked with the city attorney, and that is something that we could potentially add to the SUP. Moving on, the existing public parking available in the downtown Duncanville district shall satisfy the parking needs for the use. So as you'll remember earlier, the downtown Duncanville district does not require any parking, does not have a parking requirement, and this is just confirming that in the SUP conditions. Hours of operation shall be Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the P&Z finally recommended a 5-year term limit with the option of 5-year automatic renewals. And just to give you a piece of additional context on that 5-year time limit proposed by Planning and Zoning Commission, the applicant had noted that their potential lease term is for a 5-year period. So that's just an additional bit of information for you all to consider as far as the time limit constraints that Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended. And with that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you all may have. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ruig, I think what I would like to do in terms of the process here, I do want to call up the applicant, Mr. Rosales, but I think it would behoove him and us if we were to allow the public hearing to proceed now. And at that point, so any individuals that want to say anything will have that kind of input, as then he can respond to that, as well as you can respond to any input that we may have from our public. And so at that point in time, after the public hearing, then we'll go into discussion, and after discussion, then we will go into entertaining a motion, either for or against. So what I need to do, I don't know whether we actually have any participants out there, but I need to go ahead and speak to the public hearing for the record. So we are going to have a public hearing on item 5A for this particular ordinance in an SUP for a tattoo and body piercing facility on Main Street. So what we're going to do is done in the past. I will open up 2 different sessions of the public hearing, individuals who wish to speak in favor and individuals who wish to speak in opposition to it. And the aggregate time for each of those public hearings is 10 minutes. So anybody that wishes to speak, and if it's any number, we will only allocate 10 minutes for and 10 minutes in opposition. So at this point in time, I'm going to open the public hearing to anyone who wishes to speak in favor. And if there's anyone online in this video conference that we have, in order to speak during the public hearing, please do the following. Use the raise your hand that is provided in Zoom. If you're calling in and would like to speak, press 9 on your phone and raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, the city secretary will turn your microphone on and call on you. You will then state your name and address. So are there any individuals listening who wish to speak in favor?
Yes, sir. And I would also like to say that if you're on the phone, it's actually *9 to raise your hand. And the first speaker is going to be Brian Kaser. I'm sorry if I messed up your name. We are unmuting you now.
Go ahead, Mr. Kaser. Please state your name and address for the record.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Brian Kaser, 100 South Main Street. I own Mudhook and Black and Bitter Coffee and Books at 100 South Main Street. I am in favor of Francisco's vision wholeheartedly. I can also speak to Julian Leshna from Roma's strong support for this project. We are both all in on Francisco opening up his art studio. Francisco's art will continue to build a vibrant, exciting culture for citizens young and old in the downtown opportunity corridor of Duncanville. We all need this project to succeed. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else that desires to speak in favor?
Next is Mariah Melton.
Ms. Melton, please state your name and address, and you'll be unmuted. Go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, Mariah, I'm being told that you need to unmute yourself. You muted yourself somehow.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We have you now. Go ahead. Please
Sorry, I've been talking to y'all this whole time.
That's all right. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mariah Melton, and I live at Main Station, and my address is 100 South Main Street, apartment 215, and I am fully in support of Francisco's business coming in.
And that's it?
That's it. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor?
Juan Trejo? Okay, you're on.
Okay, my name's Juan Trejo. I'm the owner of Texas Spades Barbershop, along with Texas Spades Barber College on 212 North Main Street, as well as 1210 North Main Street. And I'm in favor for Francisco to open up his tattoo shop. I believe that we are missing a tattoo shop in our area. I hear a lot of complaints from my clients, not just young, but older. They have to be driving all the way to downtown, drive to Oak Cliff, other areas just to go get a piece of art. And just by having them here in Duncanville, I believe that we'll attract more people, and we have the art that we need just right there in our own backyard. And I'm in favor for Francisco opening his tattoo shop and having a successful establishment. And that is all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
Hugo Gonzalez?
Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez. Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Hugo Gonzalez. My address is 347 Lindcrest Drive. I just want to say very briefly that I'm in favor of this overall plan that was just presented to us. I myself, being a graduate of Duncanville, have seen the city grown, and as we can see, times are changing. Sometimes we put the bad connotation on tattoo shops or other different things, but it's about adapting. I think it's about adapting, and I think it's about that time, right? Where we can be more diverse. Duncanville is the city of champions, and if it's not gonna be here, but where else, right? We from sports to choreography to many different things. Duncanville really is the city of champions, and I'm speaking coming and being born and raised from Chicago, Illinois. So I'm in favor of this. I think it would be great for the city. I think it will just many benefits, many benefits. If I sit here,
Mr. Gonzalez, we do have a time limit. I think we pretty well got your point that you're strongly in favor. Is that okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, we've got you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else?
We have a Raphael who would like to speak.
Go ahead, Raphael.
Yes, hi, Mayor, and hi, council members. My name is Rafael Dominguez. I live at 6015 Overlook Drive. I actually have worked with Francisco. I'm part of a nonprofit organization known as the SUP-Tattoo in Dallas, and I can definitely tell you that Francisco has always been a good person towards the community when it comes to helping the community and showing his art, as well as inspiring others with his artwork as well. So I definitely am in favor of Francisco and his tattoo shop in the city of Duncanville.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else? That concludes those individuals that wish to speak in favor. Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing aspect of this of individuals wishing to speak in favor.
Mayor, we don't need a motion until the end to close the public hearing.
Oh, well, I'm just reading what you wrote me here. It's okay. So we are okay. We will now open this portion of the public hearing to those who are opposed. Do we have anybody who are opposed to this?
I'm not seeing any hands.
We'll wait just a couple seconds. Okay, seeing that we have no individuals that wish to speak in opposition in this portion of the public hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. McBurnett, motion to close,
Second.
and Mr. Cook's a second. Need a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against? Oh, sorry, he's not on this one. Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against? Four? Four, okay. Councilmember at large, Harvey, for or against? I saw his lips, for. Mayor Gordon, for or against?
Or motion to close the public hearing is approved. The timestamp on that is 7:50. What I would like to do now is invite Mr. Rosales up so that we can meet him, speak to him, and ask any questions of him from council themselves. Mr. Rosales, there he is. Good evening. Good to see you. The floor is yours, Mr. Rosales, to convince us that this is the right thing to do for our city.
Okay, well, I appreciate the opportunity. Mayor and City Council, thank you for the opportunity to present this request tonight. My name is Francisco Rosales. I live in 1002 Red Clover Lane, Duncanville, Texas. I grew up here in Duncanville, and my parents still live here today. In fact, I have my mother here with me to support me in tonight's new venture. I'm requesting a SUP for a tattoo and art studio on in the main station property of 100 South Main Street, Suite 104. If granted this request, I intend to sign a 5-year lease, 5-year lease, and be a contributing part of this business community. When I first made the decision to open my own tattoo studio, I first thought of Bishop Arts, but then I realized my own hometown had the same characteristics, and it became obvious that Duncanville is where I needed to be. I have over 140 people who live in the Duncanville area who have signed a petition in favor for my request that I believe you have in your packet. In addition, I have several people here tonight that also support me. You heard a few of them already, that, also are in favor for my support. I intend to comply with all state, Texas Health and Safety Code, Chapter 146, and all local building and certificate and occupancy requirements. The main station representative, Amaris Beamster, is here tonight with me and will help me now finish this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are y'all? Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Amaris Beamster, and I office at 111 East Davis Street here in Duncanville. I represent the general partner of Main Station, and we are in favor of this request. We believe that this business will contribute to the continued success of Main Station and will bring more creative type businesses to our town. He will be leasing 946 square feet in this mixed-use development that has 14 loft apartments and 12 businesses, including his. With this lease, the property will be 100% occupied. All existing tenants at Main Station have been notified, and none are in opposition to this request. For a point of reference, this site has 102 parking spaces. There are private as well as public parking. As stated earlier, Although the original zoning approval does not place any parking requirements or restrictions to this site. We also intend to comply with all other codes and ordinances. Thank you very much for considering this amazing addition to our city. And I would just like to add that Francisco's mom is behind us and she is here to support her son. She didn't join in through the other Zoom because we were all sitting in the room together. So thank you all.
Okay. Mr. Rosales, I do have a couple of questions for you. One of your proponents stated that there is a stigma with tattoo and body piercing parlors. What makes you different than the stigma and the stereotype of those that do body piercings and tattoos?
Well, that's a good question. I definitely want to stand out from the other shops around. One thing is it's going to be appointment only, so you know ahead of time what you're getting yourself into, more or less. You'll speak to the client through email, through phone, however it may be. So you have a general understanding of what you're going to get into. So it's more personalized versus somebody may just walking in and pick something up from the wall. It's going to be 100% customized for that individual, so everybody can leave with one-of-a-kind artwork. It's I believe that alone stands out versus your traditional, which I have the utmost respect for how it all started. And it would be one client per day, just to help maintain. Even before this whole pandemic, that was the goal. One client a day, take as long as you need to to make that one special piece come to life for that one individual.
And you feel that a 5-year lease is going to be to your benefit? I mean, it's a pretty long time.
It is. I definitely believe in this, so I think it's definitely a good start. It's just as what I believe. It's just a start. 5 years will be good enough.
How would you feel about an SUP less than 5 years, let's say 2, so that we could test and see the viability and acceptability of your operation versus 5?
I definitely respect that. I can see the the concern, and that's all I would need is opportunity.
Okay. I did go through the 27 pages of the petition, 531 individuals, and there were a whole bunch of people not even anywhere near Duncanville. Where'd you find those people?
Word of mouth, referring clients going back out of town or visiting family members elsewhere, and just through that word travels and recommendations spread.
Okay.
I also travel quite often back and forth through California, so I have a little bit of a clientele out that direction that encourages I have had a couple of clients fly out just for to pick up a one-of-a-kind piece.
Really?
Yes.
Very interesting. Your artwork that was shown to us in the PowerPoint presentation, my personal opinion is unlike what we would think are tattoos. Can you expand a little bit on the artistic expression that you will use in tattoos versus what we normally see in ink on on people's bodies?
Good question. I like to, I guess you would say, knock down the barriers as far as like what the ideal tattoo needs to be. Like I said, I want to personalize everything, so it's about immortalizing a moment, an achievement. So something like that is the direction that I want to go with. It's going to be a lot of black and gray realism, portraits, items that you held tight with you as a growing up, something that can attach a great memory to.
And you said it's not walk-in business, so each individual client is personalized in terms of the custom work that you're going to do for them.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I had. Anybody else? Any other council members? Mr. Harvey.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
We have you.
Okay, good. I don't have any questions per se, but I just wanted to weigh in terms of what this young man is doing. I, like the mayor, grew up in a time where a number of things are very different then than they are now. I am very aware of what tattoos used to be thought of, but I can tell you that I have encountered stereotypes many times during my life, and I have spent my life defying stereotypes and beating the odds. So to you, Francisco, I admire you being a young man taking this step into responsibility. I want to offer kudos to your mom, because all of us who are parents desire for our children to grow up and become responsible citizens. I personally don't have a tattoo, would never consider getting a tattoo, but it's not about me. I'm not here to serve my own interest. I'm here to work on behalf of 40,000 people, all of whom are different from me. Even the Ms. Harvey, who I live with, is different from me. So I am in support of what you are trying to do. Your community obviously embraces you and is excited about the possibility of you being with them. So I am willing to give you the opportunity that I ask society to give me over and over again. Thank you.
I would just weigh in on a little piece of what Mr. Harvey was saying. I did have questions, but I had some comments as well, is that body tattooing is mainstream today. Unlike as when we grew up, Patrick, not something we do. I don't have one, and I would not get one either. But I see artwork on people's bodies of all ages, all demographics, all ethnicities, and times, as Mr. Rosales has said, we are in a different time and a different age. And I as well had in my comments, Mr. Harvey, that we are elected officials to represent the desires of those who have put us in this position. And this is an emotional, difficult decision, only because of personal priorities and preferences and then, how we grew up. But here again, as you said, Mr. Harvey, an entrepreneur bringing something different to our city. And looking at him, one of the things that we have to do in carrying something so different is chemistry. And that's why I wanted to see and hear this individual so that we know exactly who we'd be doing business with. Mr. Cooks, I believe you'd want to say something.
Yes, Mr. Francisco, would you remind me, I may have missed this portion, how much are one of the tattoos?
It's just going to be, just as different as everybody else. It's going to be a special customized piece, so it has to take size, detail into consideration, as well as placement. So you can start off with something simple, maybe $100, and the sky's the limit as far as the imagination can take it.
Okay, what I like to do is purchase 2 gift certificates, one for the mayor and one for Councilmember Harvey, and I will give them their presents for Christmas for a tattoo.
That's a waste of money.
But no, Mr. Francisco, let me just tell you how I echo Councilman Harvey and the mayor's comments to you. Here's what's very exciting to me is if we had more students like you that leave our high school and come back into the city in which he lives, got his education to, and come back and start a business, my hat's off to you. So congratulations. I hope that you have other students that will follow your lead in that way. And once those 2 gentlemen that I just called decide that they will get their first tattoo, I will purchase a gift card for them from you for those two gentlemen, okay? Well, thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Councilmember Vera Cruz has something to say too.
All right, good evening. Just a couple of observations and comments. Being part of the Dallas Fire Department for 25 years, working with police and fire. I mean, a lot of folks have tattoos and body art, and it's just an expression of who they are and maybe a significant event in their life. So I can appreciate what you're doing. And then secondly, for the local businesses there to support you, I think is also something to be commented on, because I don't think that they would want anything in there that would disrupt something in there that would probably enhance it somehow. So I'm looking forward to coming to visit and seeing what kind of business you can bring into the city for us. So I appreciate you applying for this SUP.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jameson has something to say too.
Hi, I just wanted to say I have daughters probably very close to your age. I don't know how old you are, but what year did you graduate from Duncanville High School?
2008.
Ah, you're older. Okay. Did you have the option when you rented your space of a lease that was not 5 years? I'm kind of thinking in terms of like what the mayor said, so you could maybe dip your feet in and see how it goes, like 2 years, and then extend it as you see how successful it is.
There was I spoke to the landlord and there was a discussion, and we felt 5 years would have been a good first term lease.
Well, I understand he thinks that. I'm talking about you.
I do believe it. I do want to stay connected to the heart of Duncanville, and I felt like that would have been the perfect location.
Well, and I understand that. Do you understand what I'm asking you? Because to start out like with a 2-year lease, and then if it goes really well, then you extend it to a 5-year or whatever you want to, and the SUP could grow with it. But I just want to make sure that, and I realize starting a new business that you're going to struggle, but I'm just looking out for you, that you check it out and see how it goes. And
Okay, can I speak on behalf of the general partner for Main Station regarding his lease? We are going to do improvements to the space, and that's been amortized over 5 years. So that is the reason for the 5-year lease.
Okay, well, I understand that. So basically what she's saying is that this is the best thing for the person renting to you. I'm just asking if you have considered maybe leasing for less time to make sure that you are successful, that you take off and fly, and this is the way it should be. That's all I'm saying.
I definitely understand your opinion, and I'm very confident in myself and how well this business is going to be, successful. So I'm very confident that 5 is I stand behind that 5 years for sure.
Okay. All right.
I did have in my notes the possibility of council considering something less than 5 years, because it is our option. P&Z came forward with a 5-year automatically renewable lease. That is not a condition that we have to accept. We can put something different in there. And in fact, Councilmember Jameson and I, looking out for the entrepreneur rather than for the lessor, that 2 years automatically renewable will be something better in favor of the city, just in case. So I was actually going to find out and discuss that particular factor in with council, that we go make a motion to make this a 2-year lease, automatically renewable rather than 5. Because 5 for something just starting out is quite significant. I see Mr. Hager, you wish to speak.
Yes, Mayor and Council. One of the things that we have done over the years, we have put time limits on SUPs. And one of the things that I wanted to address with you again is so that you understand, they're not automatically renewable. So at the end of that 2-year period, the applicant has to come back in and go through the public hearing process. So what I've done is, subject to you doing 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you think is appropriate for the SUP, it will not be automatically renewable. It'll the applicant, or in this case, Mr. Rosales or the property owner, would have to come back in and get that SUP extended for a period of time.
Did I misread or misunderstand the packet where I read that P&Z recommended it, or they?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't misunderstand. That's what they recommended, but legally,
okay,
because it's zoning, it cannot automatically trigger a renewal. It has to go through the statutory process, and we've always done that. But I want to make sure the applicant understands, as well as the new council members to understand, that it's not automatic. They have to come back through the system.
Right, that's what I read in the
Whether it's
documentation.
2 years, 1 year, 5 years. So, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Mr. Cooks.
Yeah, though I can appreciate Councilwoman Jamison and Mayor, your thoughts on 2-year versus 5, but let me share with you the reason I think that would still not be good for the applicant. One is, if we did it for 2, and if for some reason it benefits the city more than benefits the applicant is still on restriction for 5-year lease. So if he came back in 2 and we said no, he is still obligated for 3 more years now without a business. Yeah. And so since his lease is signed for 5 years, the SUP should max that 5 years, because anything less than that, it puts him at risk. That's exactly right.
Has he signed the lease?
We can't control that though. We can't.
No, I didn't say you could control it. My understanding was that he was going to sign it if he got an SUP. That's why I asked the question I did.
So, Mr. Rosales, have you actually signed the lease today?
I have not.
Okay, good. Going on to another aspect of what Mr. Cooks is saying that just hit me while you were speaking, is that in 2 years, the composition of this council is not going to be the same, most likely. So coming before a public hearing changes the whole complexion of what's going on. Good point, Mr. Cooks. Thinking about that. Any other comments? All right, seeing none and hearing what I have heard, I'm going to phrase this as I believe I understand the tenor of the council, is that the chair will entertain a motion to approve with the condition, as it was stated, that this shop will also adhere to the state safety and health requirements, not just building code as we have gotten it from P&Z, and that the documentation received from P&Z that says automatically renewable is invalid, that does not apply in terms of what we're going forward with. Is that correct, Mr. Hager?
Yes, sir, that is correct. It'd be with the conditions that are set forth in the ordinance, with the exception of the automatically renewable term.
And in compliance with all state safety and health requirements. So the chair will entertain.
Yes, he would have to, he and the shop have to have a certificate from the state in order to perform his activities as he's outlined, and he would have to comply with those regulatory requirements as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Harvey. You're muted. You're muted, sir.
So move.
We have a motion to approve as stated. Is there a second? Mr. Vera Cruz has seconded. We have a motion to approve and seconded by Mr. Vera Cruz. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against? For. Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. The motion is approved unanimously. Mr. Rosales, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And I did want to clarify that I have signed, but it was only contingent in passing. So, you know, if it wasn't going to go through, then I would have been good.
Understand. Okay. Well, Mama, thank you for being back there.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, those gift certificates, they may change their mind.
Mayor, don't forget to invite Monty back into the room.
I am going to do that right now. Yes, thank you. So we are moving on to item number 5B. And Mr. Anderson, you are back. Thank you very much. Item 5B, consider resolution approving the terms and conditions of standard form of agreement, RFQ 20-011 with Brown Reynolds Watford Architects Incorporated for architectural and engineering design services for Fire Station Number 1 in the amount of $513,400. And Mr. Greg Ramey will make the presentation to us on this, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, the purpose of this briefing is for the fire station architect design contract. Next slide, please. Again, here's the staff request for your consideration of the architect design contract for the amount of $513,400. Next slide, please. Here's some background. In November of 18, the citizens approved the bond for Fire Station 1, $6 million for the land design and the construction. Back in December, we awarded Core Construction the construction manager at risk contract for the fire station. And then they in turn helped us later that month when we did the source selection for the architects. This was a two-phase review. The first phase that we did on 13 December was to review the statements of qualifications that were presented by all interested firms, which was just a binder of their firm and answering the questions that were put out in the request for qualifications. Again, there were 12 firms that we reviewed at that time. We selected 6 of those firms to advance to the phase 2 interviews. Those were conducted at the end of January, and BRW Architects was selected by the City Source Selection Board as the most qualified architect. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit of background on BRW Architects. They are here tonight as panelists for council to visit with and meet. BRW Architects does have previous experience working with our construction manager at risk, Core Construction, and received positive references when we called the other cities about the support they had. At this time, sir, I would like to turn it over to BRW Architects for them to introduce themselves, talk about their company, introduce their team, and we'll go from there. So, Gary.
Oh, yes, it's Stephen Hilt and Gary DeVries. We're both here remotely today with you. BRW Architects has a long history in designing fire station facilities. We've had over 200 projects in the state of Texas, as well as some in California. You can see from the list here that we've done some in the area as well, in nearby cities. Very proud of that record and very happy to serve the firefighting and public safety community. Go to the next slide.
June 24th, just a random Wednesday in late June.
So this is, you know, our team, core team, Gary DeVries, myself, and Carol have worked together in our civic studio for over 15 years.
Just
Yes.
a moment. Somebody is unmuted and there's a radio background noise interfering with your presentation. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's not on my side.
No, I
Yeah.
know. Okay. It's gone away. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Sure. So we've worked together for over 15 years, and we're a well-tuned machine, you know, in working on fire station projects in specific, as well as any other municipal projects. So we know each other very well. Feel like we're very well qualified to design your new fire station. It's one of many that we have done. We can keep going, Brian. Greg?
Yes. Your next slide is some of your previous projects, if you want to talk about those.
Sure. So in the upper left corner is Little Elms Fire Station 3 from a few years ago. And then towards the right, that's the watch desk area for Richardson Fire Station 4. We've recently completed Richardson's new Fire Station 1, which is the administration, their headquarters. It's a quite large station. And we are nearing completion of Richardson Fire Station 3. So we've had a really good run of work with Richardson. You can see on the lower left corner, that is the exterior shot of that same station in the upper right corner. And as well in the middle, I think, is the interior shot of the bays from Richardson Fire Station 4. In the lower right corner is the City of Dallas Fire Station 32. That one is a LEED certified fire station.
And I might add, Mayor and Council, this is Gary DeVries. I'm the principal on the project. The bottom two slides are projects that we completed with core construction, and it is our pleasure to work with them again. And certainly appreciate your consideration for this contract. It'd be an important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, this is Greg again. Just to highlight some of the contract, as you see, the $513,000 contract consists of the basic services that you see here, totaling $393K. This assumes the $4.5 million construction budget that we laid out at the beginning of the estimation process during the bond project period back in before November. And then you can see the additional services. This is what their consultants would be doing to support the design. Next slide, please. This is the future timeline. As you can tell, assuming your approval tonight, Council, we've scheduled a design kickoff meeting for later this week on the 21st. Part of this contract does include a public forum with that date to be determined once we kick off the design and review the overall schedule for this project. Spring 2021 is when we think we'll have the design complete and start construction with fall 22 construction complete. Next slide, please. Again, our staff recommendation is to approve this contract. Next slide, please. Subject to your questions, Again, the architect team is here, and I am also here to answer any questions you may have.
Hey, Mr. DeVries and Mr. Hill, going to the, I call it a town hall, public forum, what kind of questions or statements do you make to the citizens and inputs in terms of what's going to be going on with the construction of a fire station?
Well, from a design standpoint, this is Gary DeVries. We always consider the fire operations as kind of our first priority, but we also realize that this is tax dollar money. We try to, design something that really fits into the character of Duncanville and that the citizens can be proud of. So we know it's that blend of those two. So that's kind of our typical design approach. We're very collaborative architects. So meaning we work not only with the owner, but also with the contractor, because we realize it is that kind of triangle of contracts. And it's very important that we all have great communication, and not that things will not come up that needs to be solved, but in a spirit of cooperation, we need to get those solved quickly. So that's really kind of our overall approach to the design of any fire station, but particularly this one.
Okay, and I recall Mr. Hilt saying that in one of those projects that you've done, it was also the headquarters there for their fire department. And I believe our design is going to encompass the headquarters and the emergency operations center as well. Is that well within the realm of what you've normally done with other fire stations?
Sure. We've done headquarter fire stations for many fire departments. We just finished another one in Westlake. I don't believe that yours has the major component of your administration, but we haven't done a complete programming session yet. I believe it does have the EOC component that you mentioned within it. It's completely within our realm of specialty to know how to design complete administration and headquarters, as well as a central fire station. I can answer any question about that you'd like to ask us. I'd like to also chime in on Gary's about the community involvement. It's something that we're also very used to assisting with. So on very many fire stations, we're asked to secure some of the public input and make sure that the public's concerns are addressed in the design of the fire station.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just to clarify again, yes, currently the programming for this fire station does not have admin. It is for the firefighters at Station 1. The addition would be the EOC though. So yes, the EOC we would transfer from Fire Station 2 up to this new Fire Station 1.
Okay, all right. Mr. Cooks, I see you're unmuted. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I do. Yes. I did look at all of your stations, and all of them have a very great look. In addition to, I think you just mentioned Westlake. Was Westlake year one with state-of-the-art fire station, or would all of them be about the same?
No, every fire station is designed specifically to that city's requirements. Westlake is actually fairly unique in its requirements. It's next to a lot of multi-million-dollar estates, and there was concern there of reducing property values if the fire station was not of a commensurate type of visual appeal. So that's not really an apples to apples of the type of facility that we would anticipate to design in this neighborhood. As Gary mentioned, we always want our fire station designs and other municipal work to fit in with the neighborhood. We do see that this neighborhood has a lot of potential to improve. It has been doing so, we understand already, and we want to provide a facility that encourages that to continue, but it needs to be in character with the neighborhood.
Well, I'm very glad you said that, and you talked about the neighborhood on its way up versus being flatlined. So my question then becomes, is there one thing, before we get to our citizens' input, is there one thing that you can offer in that station that would be very unique outside of any other station that you would suggest to us that still meets within the budget, of course, but very, very unique and very state of the art that we can say that Duncanville has this in this fire station or it looks this way in that fire station. Any particular thing that comes to mind before a citizen come up with something?
Well, I know a number of do have public art programs, and even if there wasn't a public art piece installed, oftentimes we will do a small garden or plaza or some kind of gathering space, you know, outside the fire station that kind of encourages citizens to come in. I won't speak for the fire department, but often they welcome guests into their station to explain their operations. So just having some kind of enhanced public area. They might also do a ceremony, you know, in this kind of public area. So we'd be glad to work with, you know, Public Works and the Park Department and the Fire Department to come up with an aesthetically pleasing, you know, design that might involve some public spaces.
Well, yeah, thank you, because I know most of them are an excuse the expression, a cookie cutter approach where the outside may look different, but the inside is kind of built the same. So I was just kind of figure out how Duncanville could have something very unique when you go into the inside of the station. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Veracruz has a comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I actually work for Dallas Fire Department. I've had a chance to live, sleep, work out of Station 32 and 33 that you guys constructed. And so my question to you is, because not everyone is happy with everything, is there a plan to meet with our firefighters here in Duncanville to discuss maybe a layout or a special request, anything like that?
Yes, sir. We will
Yes.
work through Greg and Public Works, but ultimately it's the fire department who tells us their specific requirements. And it is really up to kind of the leadership team of the fire department to the amount that the firefighters are individually encouraged to participate. We have met with all three shifts and particularly enjoy if you invite us to lunch, and we'd be glad to sit down and go through and you know, understand deeply how you operate so we can put in all the details.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Jameson has a comment too. You're muted, Ms. Jameson.
Excuse me. Am I still muted? Okay. I just wanted to ask a question. Did Greg say that there was going to be a public hearing this week on the 21st?
Negative, ma'am. This is just the kickoff meeting where we sit down with the city staff and BRW architects and core construction, and we do some initial programming internal, as well as lay out the schedule for the project overall. The public hearing will be to be determined once we sit down with BRW and determine the schedule for this design project. So nothing is set yet except the kickoff meeting.
Okay, so you're going to come back then and we're going to schedule a public meeting for citizens.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We will look at the schedule and then schedule when we would have a public meeting to get the input from the citizens of Duncanville.
Okay, thanks.
At large, Councilmember Harvey also has something to say.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I have a couple of questions, one for Director Ramey and the other one for the principal, Mr. DeVries. So, Greg, I'm sure that there were several firms that were considered before you all made the recommendation. My question is, what was it that attracted you staff to this particular firm, and did their experience in any way figure in as well?
So let me just give a little bit of background regarding the process that we followed for this source selection. So the overall source selection board consisted of the assistant city manager, Paul Frederickson, the economic development director, Jessica James, the parks director, Bart Stevenson, the building official, Jim Schlachter, the fire chief, Sam Rohde, the assistant fire chief, Greg Chase, and the deputy public works director, Jackie Colton. In the phase one, when we were looking at the statements of qualifications, which was basically a review of the binders presented by all 12 firms, what we were looking for in that particular case was the depth of experience of the individual comprising this design team. We were looking at their experience with designing fire stations, and we were looking for their experience in designing EOCs as well, because the one component of this fire station is the Emergency Operations Center. We assigned weights to each of those criteria and then scored them. After we totaled all of them up, there was a distinct, a clear line between the top 6 and the bottom 6. And so the bottom 6 were the ones that were then selected to move to phase 2. In phase 2, what we were really looking for was their design approach. That was the thing that most got the most weight from the board members, or the source selection board members, for this job. And so that was an opportunity for us to, again, to sit down with the 6 architect firms that advanced to the second round, for us to meet the team in person, and then for them to walk us through how they do a design, how do they meet with us, how do they do the programming, how do they get public engagement, how do they lay out. And then, you know, they provided some initial concepts of what we were looking for based on some overarching requirements that we had at the beginning of this project, in terms of we provided them with a known size of the parcel. We told them how many bays we wanted. We told them how big we wanted the EOC to be. We told them how many firefighters needed to be operating out of that facility. And based on that, then they, you know, we were able to then get a very good understanding of how they would work with us to deliver the best project that would fit our needs and our budget. Did I answer your question, sir?
Sure. So if I understand you correctly, and if I'm not, I apologize in advance. In order to get through that initial cut of firms that went to that final round, your committee had to have confidence in their experience that they would be able to deliver the kind of product that you all were looking for. Am I overstating the experience factor?
No, the primary evaluation criteria in phase 1 was how experienced was the team that we would end up bringing on board. That's correct.
All right, so let's go to Mr. DeVries.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. DeVries, how much experience does your firm bring to the table in terms of this particular relationship that you now seek with Duncanville? How much experience does your firm bring to the table?
So BRW Architects has been designing fire stations for about 18 years now. We typically do about 10 new stations a year across the state of Texas. In the North Texas area, we have between 35 and 40 of those 200 stations. And honestly, sir, the fire community is very small in Texas. All the chiefs talk to each other. So honestly, we're only as good as our last project. And so I know Greg has called a number of our references. And so we take our design work, very seriously, but also our relationships with both, the public works groups and the department, and also with our contractor. So we need a good tight set of documents to make sure that taxpayers get good value out of their hard-earned money, and try to put it all together in one package that everyone's satisfied in the end.
So you then feel like our taxpayers will get best value because of the experience that you all bring to the table?
I think it's a combination of best value and satisfying the unique operations of the fire department, and each city does operate slightly different, although there's a lot of commonality between the fire industry, how it works. And Mr. Veracruz could certainly talk to that.
So based on your understanding of what we are looking for in terms of a fire facility, you are confident, based on your experience in doing this in the past, that your firm is capable of delivering us a product that we can be proud of?
I'm very confident of that, sir. Not only the firefighters, it's a unique environment of a home and a working environment, and there's a lot of considerations from their operations, but also, that the citizens can be proud of it as well. Yes, we're very confident and extremely excited, actually, to get started on this project. It's going to be a great project.
And I personally am excited to have you all, because your experience gives me a great deal of confidence that I can support you and your firm as being business partners with us in this endeavor.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett also has a comment. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I don't have a comment. I'd just like to make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and I see Mr. Veracruz making a second to that motion. There's no other discussion? Please vote. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember at large Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. The motion is unanimously approved. Mr. Hill, Mr. DeVries, we look forward to a superb fire station coming our way. And thank you all for your time and energy putting that packet together. And Mr. Ramey, to you and your staff and all the individuals who have worked on putting this forward to us, we do appreciate it. It's an excellent piece of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to item 5C. Consider amending the resolution 2020-026R2, extending and amending a state of emergency as a result of the COVID-19 virus, providing for interim public safety measures, repealing all resolutions in conflict. Mr. Hugman, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an extension of the current disaster declaration. As you may know, the governor last week on May 12th extended the state disaster declaration for another 30 days. The county order, the restrictions and their order expired last Friday on May 15th. This disaster declaration, what it does essentially though is to extend the state of disaster for the city of Duncanville. And the relevance of that is that it does keep us in place for getting reimbursement from FEMA for our expenses and also eligible for any grants that may come as a result of this. It, as you know too, with the previous disaster declaration, there were some restrictions in place as well, orders. Again, the Dallas County order and those restrictions expired last Friday, May 15th. And currently we are only operating under the state orders, under the Governor Abbott's guidelines for open Texas and the governor's executive orders. And so that is what is referenced by this disaster declaration. We are recommending that the declaration be extended to June 17th, which would be after your second council meeting in June, the day after, and that is a couple of days after the 30-day extension that Governor Abbott has put into place. If the state repeals their disaster declaration, then the way this resolution is worded, or this disaster declaration is worded, then it would also automatically be repealed. And I would be happy to answer any questions, or a city attorney can answer any questions you may have.
Just one comment or question. There has been some very pointed remarks made by the governor in terms of local jurisdictions making orders or changes to things in conflict with what's coming out of the general orders from state capitol. I just want to make sure for all of our confidences here on the city council that extending this into June is not in conflict, as I know you've said it, but I just need I just need a real warm, comfortable affirmation that, you know, what we're doing is not going to cause the Attorney General or the Lieutenant Governor to send us any kind of a nasty note that's been sent to some jurisdictions that I've read and seen. That we're going to be all in the clear with this. This is the right thing to do for us with this extension.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, from my perspective, this puts you in alignment with Governor Abbott's orders and as amended, including the newest order that he issued on Monday of this week on the 18th.
Very good, thank you. Any comments from any council members?
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, McBurnett.
We have a motion to approve and we have a second. Please vote. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against. Is that 4? Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you, council. The motion is unanimously approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 5D. Consider a resolution repealing the establishment of the Duncanville Sister City Commission. This is my issue. And I'm going to give you some background. The Sister City Commission, the Sister City relationship with Monasterolo di Civigliano was established back in the mid-90s. And it became a formal commission, I believe, in 2017, which then put it underneath the jurisdiction of the city and also established it subject to the Open Meetings Act and the Open Records Act. As a result of that, it's become a very formal type of thing. I had some familiarity with the Sister City Commission and its establishment by sitting in on some city council meetings during the time of its establishment. And then when the Sister City folks from Montestorolo visited here in September, we all had an opportunity to interface with them and get firsthand experience with what this relationship was all about. Now, I have, at the National League of Cities, I visited with the national office of the Sister Cities and questioned them in terms of the true viability of Sister City relationships, what's supposed to come out of those things. And there's supposed to be cultural exchanges, there's supposed to be financial exchanges in terms of manufacturing capabilities on both sides of the ocean, trade actions going on between the two governments or the two municipalities. And subordinately to that is the cultural exchange. And when I looked at that to find out exactly what did we benefit as a city having a formal relationship, a formal commissioned relationship with Montestorolo, I did not see that. And when we as a council convened last year to look at boards and commissions in terms of reappointing individuals, we had an informal discussion among ourselves that we really didn't see the need to continue this relationship formally, to have an actual commission under the jurisdiction of the city. And with that in mind, when the individuals from Montestorolo visited here in September, that was in the back of my mind every moment of every day that I spent with those individuals. And I could not see coming to fruition the true benefits and advantages of having a formal commission. It was a friendly visit. It was a great visit. And from what I understand from those individuals that have gone there, it's always friendly and it's always great as well. But is there true cultural exchange? Is there true financial exchange? Is there any true manufacturing exchange? And the answer to that is no. So I then put it in my mind that the best thing for our city to do was to not have this as a formal commission. We have enough. And one of the things I was deeply concerned with in terms of relationships is when the folks from Montestorolo were here, Senator Jane Nelson was involved in that visit. Now, I had no relationship with her. I had never even met her. But during some of the things that we did together that were scheduled to be with her, I and my wife became acquainted with Senator Jane Nelson and, in fact, her husband. And we sat down and actually had dinner together it wasn't alone. I mean, we were with like 60 people. But she and I were at the table together. And I found out that this relationship between Senator Jane Nelson and Montestorolo goes back a lot of years. In fact, her daughter went to Italy to be married in Montestorolo. Well, what did that do to my thinking? It kind of perked my ears up to say that this is something that we need to consider, that we can't disestablish this relationship without having some understanding of how Senator Jane Nelson has a perspective on this. So I arranged to meet with her, and I did in her offices in Grapevine. And I went over my thoughts. I gave her my perspective very professionally, and Senator Jane Nelson agreed that the formal relationship between our two cities was not necessary. It was not of true beneficial advantage to where we could document it in any way, shape, or form. But it's nice to have friends overseas, and that's kind of the way it is. And she said she completely understood my perspective and understanding that what we needed to do was disestablish this as a formal commission. Now, she did say that it would be very nice if we could find some other way to continue the relationship but it doesn't have to come under the jurisdiction of the city as a formal commission. And she made some comments to the effect that it might, the people that want to maintain this relationship, they might be able to do it and establish a formal 501c3 if they wanted to do it that way. Or it could go through the chamber. They could have a relationship with some committee on the chamber. And the other aspect of it was that, our high school already has a foreign student exchange program that Montestorolo could enroll in that, or there could be a relationship between Duncanville High School and Montestorolo. So those three pieces of how this could continue were very viable. And Senator Jane Nelson was completely on board with what I felt as a city we needed to do, was to disestablish this commission. When the Sister City Commission met, I am a member of that commission, as is Mr. Hugman. When we met, when was it, Mr. Hugman? February sometime? Yeah, there was a Sister City meeting scheduled, and I put myself on the agenda. And at that point, I informed those present on the Sister City Commission that it was my intent to move forward with the disestablishment of the commission. Were they agreeable? No. But it's a matter that I believe is what we need to do as a city. And so what is before you tonight with my explanation is a resolution to disestablish the Sister City Commission with Montestorolo di Civigliano. Now, I have already, in hopes that council would agree with what I am proposing, I have already prepared a letter to the mayor of Montestorolo di Civigliano, telling him of what we're going to do, and also laying out the three possibilities of how this relationship can continue. That letter has been officially translated, not by any friends of anybody on the commission. I asked City Secretary Kristen Downs to find a professional translating company to do the official translation, and in fact to get an affidavit or a certification that it is a true and accurate translation of my letter, because this is intergovernmental correspondence, international intergovernmental correspondence, and we do have that affidavit or that certification in hand. So I am prepared, with your concurrence, to go ahead and informally disestablish the Sister City Commission, and then also to dispatch this letter to the mayor of Montestorolo di Civigliano. And I also, in my letter, put myself at his disposal to help him work any of those three options that he may want to do with our city. I'm willing to do that, my time. I can work with Dr. Smith at the council. I can work with Mr. Martin at the chamber. I can do whatever they would like us to do in terms of keeping this relationship going with our city. So with that, I will open up to any thoughts or comments from you folks. Seeing none, I guess, I've made a pretty convincing argument. I appreciate that. I see Councilmember Jameson, you've unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to comment on?
I agree. I just, I was going to make a motion to approve repealing the establishment of the Duncanville City Sister City relationship.
Okay, we have a motion.
Councilmember Veracruz has his hand up, sir.
Mr. Veracruz.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just in my heart, I hate to give up any opportunity for anybody to serve in any capacity. And I hear you, I understand. Maybe I'd like to maybe have one of those actions in place or an agreement to before we dissolve the commission. I just think it'd be just work a whole lot better for us. Thank you.
Comment acknowledged. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Then I'll second it. We have a motion to approve and we have a second. This is a roll call vote. Please vote.
Councilmember Veracruz,
I want to say something first. If we keep this, we have a major problem with having a person on the committee that does not live in Duncanville. They used to, they moved, and they sort of took it over. And there was a lot of animosity. I know that I received phone calls and letters, and everybody did. And to me, it was so incredibly hurtful for the man who lives in this area now, that's from that city, and whatever is going on, I don't know, but it's not a good thing. And also, I think we need to know as a council that if you have a sister city relationship, there's a format for it. There's an organization. You pay $10,000 to be a member, and there's all sorts of structure and requirements. We didn't do that. We never did that. We never went through the sister city process and joined the organization and paid the money and did the deal. We just found somebody and said, we have this. And to me, it seems like somewhere along the way it went off the rails, because I don't know what happened, what was going on. I can't remember the fellow's name, but that kept showing up at our council meetings. There's a lot.
Dario Cressetta.
Yes, there's a lot of pain involved there, and it stopped being positive. And so just having a committee to have a committee is, I'm sorry. That sounds like church, Mr. Veracruz, when we have committees to have committees to have committees, because we want it to be positive.
Let me respond to Mr. Veracruz. Mr. Veracruz, 2 individuals on that commission have resigned. 2 of the individuals left on the commission don't even live in the city anymore and haven't lived in the city for quite a while. So that basically leaves me, it leaves Mr. Hugman, and I think maybe 2 other people. So in terms of people to serve, those people can find other places to serve on other commissions and committees in our city. Mr. Hugman?
Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry. I do mean to, I told you incorrectly that there were 2 that had resigned. I verified today, only 1 has resigned. So we have 6 members. And I also want to be clear that I am not a board member. I am the staff liaison to the board.
Good, thank you for that correction. Okay, so Mr. Veracruz, I think there's plenty of opportunities for other people that want to serve, we can, all they have to do is apply when it comes time for us to appoint new people to boards and commissions. I know, as I said, I acknowledge your comment. Still wish to proceed. So we have a motion to approve and we have a second. So proceed with the roll call vote. If there's no further discussion, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
Against.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
Against.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At large, Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
Against.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. That makes 4 and 3 against, if I have my numbers correct.
Yes, sir.
Motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 5E, selection of executive search firm, and action will be taken as a minute entry. Again, this is my item, well, because of what happened the last time. Recall that we were not able to reach unanimity on the selection of an executive search firm, and we agreed that 3 of us would serve as an ad hoc committee to interview 2 of the 3 finalists, one being SGR and the other being International. And so those interviews did take place with myself, Mr. McBurnett, and Mr. Cooks representing the committee. And there were 2 purposes with the intent of finding information out. First of all, with the Pearson proposal, it was a lot of money. So the objective in talking to Pearson was to find out if there's any way that we could receive the same amount of service with any less cost. With Pearson, I'm sorry, with SGR, there was concern that we did not get the ranking individuals to come speak to us about discussing their proposal. So the purpose in discussing with SGR was finding out who those principals are. I will sum up very briefly what happened, and then also to say that the 3 of us, Mr. McBurnett, Mr. Cooks, and myself, came to a unanimous decision on which firm that we would propose to you to be our executive search firm. First of all, in discussing the matter of money with Pearson, it's even more important today than it was even 72 or 96 hours ago because of the effect of COVID-19. And I recall quite clearly my own statements when we were reviewing this in terms of dollars versus deliverable. And I have had to give very serious consideration to my own thoughts on that because of the effect of the sales tax reduction that we are facing for who knows how long. So money does play a very, very important part in our decision. And when we had our discussion, and by the way, both discussions with SGR and Pearson took place here in City Hall in person, because we felt it was very, very important to have that interface, to have some chemistry, understanding who it is that we're talking to, and not just do it over video conference. So those discussions were face-to-face in person. And just to make sure, for the record, we did conform with all social distancing requirements and protocols. So to sum up very quickly with Pearson International, Pearson said yes, they would be willing to reduce their fee by $10,000 and not reduce the content of any of their work. So their fee became $55,000 versus $65,000. It was a very good discussion with them. We did find out that basically it's a team of 3. The primary person, she would have about a 70% activity. Her backup in terms of expertise would have 20%, and the CEO would have about a 5%, if that, interaction with us as a city in terms of finding that individual. There were some concerns expressed during the interview process by the entire council in terms of their lack of experience in selecting a city manager per se. And they did confirm that their selection of city managers is limited. And they alluded to the selection of the city administrator for Las Colinas as being equivalent to a city manager, but that's about the only one that they could cite. In fact, it is the only one that they could cite as a city manager. So then we went to have a separate evening of discussion with SGR. And before I go into that, in terms of my comments, I would like Mr. McBurnett and Mr. Cooks to briefly express their opinions of what they discovered during our discussions with SGR. So, Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say that all 3 firms that we had in our list were quality firms. We got it narrowed down to 2 firms. The firms that we met with, we gave them good, tough questions. And I felt like they took them all head on. We asked very direct questions, and much demanded hard, direct answers. So the experience with both firms were very well.
Is that it, John?
I'm done. Go ahead.
I really don't have much to add. Two good firms. Definitely one more on a corporate CEO search type opportunity, which was, you could tell in their presentation that was delivered that way as well. Concern initially for me was also budget dollars. And though I appreciate the amount of reduction, it's still, I was just trying to make sure our citizens receive equal quality of service regardless of that amount. And so with that, that's kind of how I felt with the first firm, and I was fine with it after that.
So my input in terms of the concern that we as a council had with the individuals that SGR was going to be handling our account, it was clarified to us that Jennifer Fadden is the president of executive search for SGR. She is the person that's in charge of this entire process. And there is a team of 8 that reports to her in taking care of this. No one above Ms. Fadden is involved in this executive search process. Margie Rose is second to Ms. Fadden, and she has the title of Senior Vice President. And we had a long discussion in terms of the ability to do our search. SGR's extensive experience in Texas in terms of actually finding city managers is unmatched by Pearson in terms of just pure fact. And the extent of the database available to executive search firms is equivalent between Pearson and SGR. We are not going to be to any detriment in terms of a database finding responsible candidates for our city manager position by using any one firm or the other. And I do want to go back to what comment Mr. McBurnett made, and I made it personally and publicly before, that when we're looking at these firms, it's when you look at individuals that are worthy of promotion, you stack them up against each other, and what you have is you have 3 superb candidates. Everyone is exceptional. What you're looking for is that very fine edge that puts one over the other. It's not a negative. You're looking for more of extreme positives than looking for any negatives whatsoever. Not making any comments to the detriment of any of them. And that's what we were looking at. And so when Mr. McBurnett and Mr. Cooks and I made these interviews, we really pounded home some very, very hard questions. And as I said, we did come to a unanimous conclusion that the best firm that we need to hire to find our next city manager is SGR. Now, going back to our previous vote, while I was looking for unanimity when we did that, we were not able to reach it. That's why we did what we did. And so tonight, what we 3 are proposing to City Council is that City Council does select SGR for our executive search firm. And we will put this to a vote, and the motion is carried, is written for us in terms of moving on with this. Now, before we go that way, I do, of course, want to hear any comments or discussion on part of City Council members, but understand that there are now 3 votes for SGR as it stands because of Mr. Cooks, myself, and Mr. McBurnett. And my vote previously was for Pearson International. So I have actually moved my vote from Pearson to SGR. So I will open it up to comments, discussion, please. Mr. Harvey. You're muted. You're muted. Mr. Harvey, you're muted.
I know. I lost my picture. I was trying to get my picture back.
Okay.
Okay, so can you see me as well as hear me?
Yes, that's an
Okay, very good. Very good. Yes, I definitely appreciate the work that that you three council members, I'm sorry, two council members and mayor have done, and I think it's important, as you said, Mayor, given everything that's going on, it's really hard, I think, to justify to the taxpayers the difference that we would have paid to the other final candidate, Pearson Partners, versus SGR. That would have been very hard, I think, to explain to our average neighbor taxpayer here. So I understand that, and I'm glad I don't have to make that argument. The other thing is, in terms of experience, we just talked about the fire station that was on the agenda, and one of the things, and you heard Mr. Ramey repeat 3 times and a 4th time about experience, and so experience matters. If experience matters in terms of constructing a fire station, it should also matter in terms of us making this very significant decision. I think it's a lot more likely that we will get a great person if we rely on people who have the demonstrated track record of doing this, as we relying on a demonstrated track record of an architectural firm to build this very important facility for us. So I'm very much into consistency. And so I think supporting SGR in this matter is very consistent with what we have done tonight. And I throw my support to SGR. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Let me just, I guess we probably need to be careful, and it's too late now, need to be careful on how we voice our vote before we actually vote, because then we are persuading our vote for others. But I just want to be careful even as we all state that, even as we stated, the 3 of us, the decision that we've made. But it was a very still hard decision, because I will tell you the assessment tool really stood out for me on the other company. It really, really stood out for the other company. The assessment tool used to identify the right city manager candidate, that needed to be carried over to the next company as well, which initially I didn't find that. So I just wanted to say that after, I've learned a lot from the first firm, and that's normally how you do it. I learned a lot from the first firm. I just could not tackle the budget dollar for it. But the learning from it was great. And hopefully we take that same learning and move it over to what we're doing with the SGR firm, and we're getting the same, the quality itself. But I will tell you that the first firm was not, by no means, they had still a lot to offer.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett has his hand raised, and so does Councilmember Jameson.
I just want to go back to what Mark said. We did ask very hard questions again. They're both quality firms, and both, I think, could do us a very, very good job. The thing I think that makes the biggest difference is the experience. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jameson.
I just wanted to say one thing on the money, because we hired SGR, and the years that I've been on the council, we've hired them repeatedly for seminars. We did the facilitator at the city council retreat. So they're getting a lot of money from us in different areas. I don't know if we've hired other employees through them or not, but it isn't limited to just this contract. The 55,000 or whatever, how they justify it, that group. I just liked the fact that it was professional, a different group, but you know, we can keep using the same thing that we've always used. I mean, we have. When Kent Cagle left, we did. And we did it again, and we did it again, and we did it again. So that's fine. We can keep using the same one. And I mean, we might as well take a vote, because with Mark changing his vote, you've already told us that you now have the vote. So let's just get her done. I'll make a motion to hire SGR.
Let me correct that, Ms. Jameson. I didn't change my vote because my vote was in the middle. I was not convinced on either one when I went into it.
No, you supported a different company.
Yeah.
And you've already said that you now support SGR. You said it.
And I said that I changed my vote from Pearson to SGR based on it. Yes, I did say that. Okay, so what we have is a written motion. It is explicit and needs to be read exactly that way for the record. Would someone please make a motion as it's written in the agenda, and the dollar amount, if the individual who's going to make that motion doesn't recall, by their proposal, that is $26,500.
So Mayor, I'd like to make that motion to approve a contract with SGR to provide search firm services to assist the city council in the selection for the position of city manager for the city of Duncanville, and the amount not to exceed $26,500, and authorize the current city manager to execute such contract.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second, Mr. Vera Cruz?
Second.
Okay, I see Mr. Vera Cruz as a second. This is a roll call vote. City Secretary?
Councilmember Vera Cruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against. Where did she go?
She's gone.
She's gone. Okay, Mayor Gord, or at-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. So that would show Councilmember Jameson is abstaining, if I know the rules correctly. Is that right, Mr. Hager?
Yes, she wasn't in the room during the vote.
Okay. So that motion is passed, 6-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5F, take any necessary action as a result of executive session as pertaining to executive session item number 2.
Mayor and council.
There is action to be taken on item number 2.
Yes,
There's no
as a
action
result,
to be taken on item number 1.
Yes, as a result of the executive session regarding real estate issue or economic development issues, is a motion to authorize the city attorney and city manager to undertake the necessary legal action, including any court proceedings, to terminate the lease, terminate the entrepreneurial agreement, and foreclose a secured interest on personal property with Eon, including recovery of all future rent, past rent, and the cost associated with the foreclosure and the termination of the lease in accordance with the lease agreement, in accordance with the entrepreneurial agreement, and in accordance with the security interest.
Okay, we have a motion that has been read. I need a motion. We need an approval.
So moved. McBurnett.
We need a second.
Second.
Mr. Harvey has made a second. Roll call vote, please vote.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you very much. Motion has been passed.
Okay.
And the minutes annotated accordingly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. No further action is needed from executive session.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes items for individual consideration. Moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Received the library quarterly report.
We're just asking if there's any questions for Library Director Julio.
Mayor and Council, we provided the library update to you in your packet. So if you have any questions, Library Director is on as well.
Only question, just for clarification, as a result of reopening Texas as of yesterday, what's the status of our library now?
Mr. Mayor, we've reopened with partial hours and partial patrons allowed in starting yesterday. During the time we've been closed, we have been offering services like home delivery and curbside service, so we have maintained those services. But as of yesterday, we did reopen with partial hours. Yesterday, we had about 28 patrons come into the library to get items, return items. Today, we had about 30. So it's gradually increasing, but they've been social distancing and observing all the proper protocols for safety.
Okay. And I did notice in your report, the number of deliveries and number of curbside. It's really fantastic. Kudos to you and your staff for that, Mr. Velasquez.
Oh, thank you. They've worked very hard, and we've had a lot of very happy patrons with us because of those services we've been able to continue to offer.
And from what I understand, just listening and looking at other libraries around the city or around the Metroplex, what you did was somewhat unique. Not every library chose to go out of their way to help our citizens. So again, thanks very much for that. It's a great initiative and much appreciated by all of our citizens.
And I'm very proud of my staff for all their hard work.
Very good. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett has his hand raised.
I just wanted to comment again, Julio. Thank you. You've done a wonderful job, and I appreciate what the library does and what they offer and what they're going to do in the future.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Kristen, any other hands raised?
No, sir, that's it.
Seeing none. Okay, thank you very much. The timestamp.
Wait. I do have one thing.
Whoa. Who? Oh, Mark? Yeah.
Sorry.
The one thing I have is there is somebody on the call today who has turned a year older. So I want to tell Monty Anderson happy birthday.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Happy birthday.
Thank y'all.
39 plus.
For 39 gray hairs?
You gave me a birthday present tonight. A big one.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
For sure. Okay, we are adjourned officially at 9:27. Thank you very much, everybody. If you please leave the meeting. 9:27.